So the post-Napoleonic Congress of Vienna conservative balance of power, restoring monarchs to its thrones, didn't last too long. There were some revolutions in France in 1830, some other revolutions in Belgium that really spurred a full-scale movement of revolutions in 1848 against these traditional monarchs, these constitutional monarchies. And we're going to, this true false statement uh, activity helps us look at some of those. Where do you find most of these things? So if you most of these under the MI Open Book Chapter 7.1. So like for example, if you do a Control F for Austria, if you hit Control F and do ones for Austria, you might find information about Austria, or if you do one for Bismarck, you'll find information about Bismarck there that you might need, or Italy, or so on, based on what the true false statements are saying. So what your job is in these is to look up in 7.1 or in other places what consider the statement whether it's true, false, and if so, correct it and move it into its right spot. True, if it's true, move it up to the true. If it's false, move it over to the false. Okay, if it's true, move it over to the true. If it's false, move it down to the false. If it's a false statement, you need to correct it. So a couple I'm going to help you with based on some activities that weren't super clear, and some material that I'm going to talk about in class. A unification movement was led by students and supported by peasants. This is in fact a true statement. So you'd move it up into the true area, and you know how to do this from previous experience. We just drag and drop these into the right area, but I'm not going to move them all. So this is true. Another one is that there was fear Germany would become too large and dangerous if united under Bismarck. And this is certainly true. You could read more about Bismarck, so you'd move that up into the true area. Okay, there was fear Germany would become too large and united. So again, remember that we're looking at this idea of uniting Germany, and we would continue to work on uniting Germany as we go along. So we would continue to work on uniting Germany. Remember, Germany, it was under the biggest state, Prussia, that would be uniting Germany. The last one I'm gonna talk about is the one about there was one that's false. Um, One of the effects of the various revolutions was the continuation of the monarchy in Prussia and Austria. One of the effects of the various revolutions. So let me erase this so we can get this out of the way here. So looking at this, a positive effect of the various revolutions was the end of the monarchy in Austria and in Prussia. Well, that's not true. The monarchy would actually continue in Austria and Prussia, so this was not an effect. So what we would do, and we need to change this in a color other than red, we'd erase the word effect, and then we would put not the end, but then we put the continuation. So not only do you have to move the false ones down to false, but you need to correct them and correct them in a color other than red. So then we in a color other than black. So you make the change in red, and then move it down into the false section. Okay, and that's what you do for the false ones. That's what you're going to do for the false ones. Okay, you're going to fix them, and then you're going to make them red when you fix them. So you're going to fix the false ones and just move the true ones up to true. And again, and I just gave you three of them, but largely it will be this part of the text that will help you. The other thing that you need to do is looking at so guided reading on China, and 7.2 will help you with that, and you can do some Control Fs to help you figure out this. But one of the things was the causes and the effects of the First and Second Opium War. So if we look at the Opium War, one of the on this chart, one of the causes of the well, excuse me, one of the causes, one of the effects of the first Opium War was that Britain could no longer bring opium to China, and and it was called out Britain's um, um, excuse me, Britain can no longer bring opium to China, called out Britain's hypocrisy in forcing a product that was illegal in their own country. So this was, so the opium wars were fought over um, China, British trying to import opium into China when the Chinese said we don't want it. So basically, what the British were forced to do, the Chinese surrendered, and in the first opium war, and the British were forced to drew up the terms of the treaty of what's called Nanjing in favor of themselves. So it was a very unequal treaty as a result of this war. So this again, you can the Chinese surrendered and the British drew up the treaty of the terms of the Treaty of Nanjing, and then you can go back and look at the Taiping Rebellion and the results of the first Opium War and some of the details of the Taiping Rebellion and what were the causes and some of the effects of them, and then the Boxer Rebellion. You may remember the Society of Harmonious Fists. Their mission was to destroy the foreigners, leading them to kill Chinese Christians. These are and it literally tells you what section to look at: opium, foreign influences, and attempts at reform. It literally tells you what sections to look in. Um, it tells you what sections to look in. And this, this is on page 165. So it does skip around a little bit. So that and then this, and it tells you, um, looking at the events, describe each event, and then the causes of each event, and then the effect. And I just gave you that one, and we're looking at. So they fought several wars, and we're going to look at those more extensively. But right now, you're reading about these um, as we go along here, based on this particular based on this particular text, right here, opium, and then looking at the foreign influences and attempts at reform, and then it looks at the various wars in this particular section, the opium wars that were fought because the Chinese um, um, became addicted to opium. The British were trying to take advantage of it and began smuggling opium, even though the Chinese emperor was like, "No, we did not want the opium."